It all happened within a twinkle of an eye. What I thought I could control overpowered me. You know, we women most times think that we can handle every situation, but in reality, we can't. My husband is a businessman, while I'm a stay-at-home wife. My husband didn't want me to work. He only promised to open shop for me after he finishes one of his real estate buildings. Since we've been living in peace. My husband has a grown-up son who is my stepson. Not until my husband began to take his business more seriously and starts traveling for months, leaving me alone in our big quiet house. At first, I tried to cope by keeping myself busy with house chores, watching movies, and visits to friends, but the loneliness kept creeping in, filling the house with an emptiness that made me think unnecessarily. My stepson is a university student. His name is Peter. When he came back from school for the holidays, I was happy, because I thought I've gotten a gist partner, but it was so unlucky that things went south. Peter is tall, dark, and handsome boy. Much finer than his father. God took his time to create him. Every time he walks into a room, it was as if he brought the sun with him. Women couldn't stop staring at him when we went out. Even my friends were jokingly asking if I was hiding him from Abuja girls. I would smile and brush it off. But deep inside, I understood why they were so drawn to him. At first, I kept my distance, because he seems not to be the type that talks a lot. So I maintained my pace. After all, he was just a young man with the energy and charm of his age. But then one evening, I heard him in the kitchen singing one of those new gospel songs. His voice was deep and smooth, and I couldn't help but smile. I walked into the kitchen pretending that I needed water. Mama, how is my voice? He asked, smiling. That smile could make any woman weak. I think I want to pursue music career, he said. I laughed. It's not bad though, but what you need is a small practice. But you know your father won't support it. I replied. I know, but I'm not depending on him either. He replied. And so we ended up talking for hours. First time ever. Although, it was a harmless talk about school, his plans, and my cookings. But from that moment I started noticing things about him: his confidence, the way he carried himself, the little jokes he cracked, and how he made me laugh even when I didn't want to. One night, the power went out and we were forced to sit together in the living room with candles lighting the space. We talked again, this time about life and dreams. The way he looked at me that night, with those deep brown eyes, made me feel something for him. I felt ashamed, but I couldn't help myself. The first time it happened, it was like I wasn't in control of my body. We were in the kitchen again, joking about his poor attempt at frying egg. I went to correct him, standing close behind him, and before I knew it he turned around, and our eyes locked in. My heartbeat increased for a moment. He used his hand to brush mine. And the next thing I knew, we were kissing. I pulled away immediately. My mind blank. Stop it. This is wrong, I said, my voice trembling, but he held my hand. Mummy, I've tried to fight this feeling, he said, but I can't anymore. It was as if he had unlocked the part of me I didn't know existed. That night, we crossed a line I thought we'd never cross. I told myself it was just one mistake, but it wasn't. It happened again. And again, each time I felt guilty, yet I couldn't resist. He became my escape, my comfort in my husband's absence. We kind of loved each other, we shared secrets, and for a while, I forgot the loneliness. But deep down I knew it couldn't last. I was playing with fire and I could already feel the flames at the edges of my life. One afternoon, after another stolen moment with Peter, I sat alone in my room staring at a photo of my husband and I. Just then, tears rolled down my cheeks, as guilt consumed me. How did I get here? How did I let myself fall so far? But, just as I was drowning in regret, Peter knocked on my door. He walked in his usual confident self, and sat beside me. Mummy, he said, his voice soft. You're not alone. You don't have to feel like this. His words were comforting, but they also scared me. I was trapped in a way of my own making, and I didn't know how to untangle myself without destroying everything. We continued for about 2 weeks, and my life became a mix of emotions. I couldn't explain. I knew what Peter and I were doing was wrong, but it was as if I couldn't stop myself. After each stolen moment with both of us, I felt like I was going to be fine. But the more it happened, the heavier my heart became. One Sunday afternoon, we were having lunch together in the dining room. Peter had just returned from church, looking fresh in his white t-shirt, the way it clung to his well-built chest. I couldn't concentrate on my food. My thoughts made me played with the rice on my plate. My thoughts had tangled me. "Mummy," Peter called, breaking into my thoughts. I responded, startled. "You've been quiet all through. Are you okay?" he asked. I forced the smile. "I'm fine, Peter." But the truth is that I wasn't fine. My heart was pounding and I felt like the walls were closing in on me. I needed some space to clear up my mind of evil thoughts, so I stood up abruptly. "Excuse me," I said, rushing to the balcony. The cool breeze calmed my face, but it didn't ease the storm within. As I stare at the compound below, memories of my life with my husband flooded my mind. The way he used to hold me, the laughter we shared, before his business trips became more important than our family. How did we get here? How did I let things got out of control? Before I knew it, Peter was beside me. "Mummy," he called out softly, his voice like a bomb to my trouble. "What is wrong with you?" "Talk to me," said Peter. "I don't know, Peter," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I feel like I'm drowning this thing between us. It's wrong. I can't keep doing this." He placed a hand on my shoulder, turning me to face him. "You're not wrong for wanting love, Mummy. You've been abandoned, left to feel like you're invisible. I see you. I care about you." This boy is so good with words, and before I could think, he pulled me into his arms, holding me. As I sobbed, it felt safe, but it also felt like betrayal. After that day, I tried to put some distance between us. I avoided being alone with Peter, kept myself busy with housework, and even started going out more. But Peter, he was persistent. He found ways to pull me back in. It was like he knew exactly how to break down my defenses. One evening, he convinced me to watch a movie with him. "Mummy, just a movie, nothing more," he promised. Flashing that charming smile, I hesitated but agreed, thinking I could handle it again. Another mistake. We sat on the couch, with a big space between us at first. The movie was a comedy and we laughed so much that for a moment, it felt innocent, like nothing has ever happened between us. But then, during a quiet scene, he reached for my hand. My heart raced. As I turned to look at him, his eyes were deeply looking into mine. "I can't help how I feel about you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Peter," I started, but he leaned closer, cutting off my words. His lips brushed mine softly and I melted into the kiss before I could stop myself. It wasn't just soft this time, it was tender, filled with emotions I wasn't ready to face. As the days went on, I felt myself slipping further. The guilt was always there like a shadow, following me everywhere. I prayed to God, asking God for strength, for forgiveness, but every time I saw Peter, my mind crumbled. Then one day, everything changed. My husband came back home unexpectedly. Thank goodness, I was in the kitchen cooking vegetables, when I heard his booming voice. "Where is my wife?" he asked. My heart stopped. I hadn't prepared for his return. He walked into the kitchen. His presence filled the environment. "Surprised to see me?" he asked, smiling. I forced a smile, my hands trembling, as I wiped them on my apron. "You didn't tell me you were coming back today," I said. "I wanted to surprise you," he said, pulling me into a hug. "He smells so good, I missed it." As we sat down for dinner that night, I couldn't help but notice the tension in the air. Peter was unusually quiet with his father, but this time, he was avoiding eye contact with both of us. My husband was all happy. He talked about his trip, his plans for the future, and how much he had missed us. But I couldn't focus. My mind was racing, fear grip in my heart. What if you found out? What if everything came crushing down? Night came and I lay on bed beside my husband for the first time in months. I felt the weight of my choices pressing down on me. I wanted to tell him the truth, to beg for forgiveness. But the words wouldn't come. I prayed and hoped he doesn't find out the evil I have done. I felt I was trapped in a web of lies. I had spawned myself. I tried to avoid Peter as much as possible, but it wasn't easy. The tension between us grew and I could sense that my husband was starting to notice. Something wasn't right. One evening, while my husband was in the balcony, Peter conned me in the hallway. "Mummy, we need to talk," he said, his voice low. "There's nothing to talk about, Peter," I whispered, glancing nervously. "This has to stop. It's over. This is making me suffer," I said, and he looked at me emotionally. And for a moment, I saw the boy he used to be, the one I had helped train. Not the man who had turned my world upside down. "I care about you," he said, "but I see the pain in your eyes. Maybe it's time we let go for the good of both of us." His words were a mixture of relief and heartbreak for the first time. I felt a ray of hope that I could start to fix the mess I had made. But life wasn't going to let me off the hook that easily. I was happy this is ending, and there is no way my husband will find out. I promised myself that this will never repeat itself again. Soon, the guilt starts to fade away. A few days later, my husband called me into the room. He was holding his phone. "I was going through my CCTV and I found a video of you and Peter kissing," he said, with his eyes teary. I froze. "CCTV? In this house?" My heart skipped. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice trembling. He handed me his home laptop, and there they were, video of me and Peter in a private moments. I didn't even know the CCTV were working. I thought we destabilized them, he said. I collapsed onto the couch. Tears rolled down my face as I tried to find the words to explain, to justify myself. But there was nothing I could say. My husband was sad. "How could you do this to me, Sandra?" he asked. "How could you do this to our family?" "I'm sorry," I sobbed. I was lonely, vulnerable. I didn't mean for this to happen. But sorry wasn't enough. The damage was done and my actions had tore our family apart. My husband asked his son to leave the house immediately and made it clear that our marriage would never be the same again. That night, as I sat alone in the darkness, I realized the full extent of what I had lost. Not just my husband's trust, but my own sense of self. I had let my loneliness and vulnerability lead me down a path I would regret forever. My advice for women in similar situations. As a woman out there, loneliness can be a powerful and dangerous emotion. If you ever feel neglected or abandoned in your relationship, don't let that emptiness push you into making decisions you regret. Instead, seek healthy outlets, talk to your partner, find a trusted friend, or even speak to a counselor, no matter how tempting the offer might be. Remember that the consequences can be devastating. Not just for you, but for everyone involved. Always prioritize open communication and self-respect over temporary comfort.